you, Chairman, for allowing me to be here, and thank you, Senators, for allowing me to come testify on House Bill 840. Many of you have heard this bill before. I believe the Chairman actually had a very similar bill to this committee, and it was passed out. What this bill does is it's the Aerotropolis bill, and it creates a tax credit incentive for international trade for Missouri and Missouri's exporting of goods and jobs. Creates a couple of different tax credits. It creates a tax credit for the facilities to build the facilities, and also for the facilities to operate and export Missouri goods, and also creates a tax credit for the exportation of Missouri's products.
What House Bill 840 or Aerotropolis or Senate Bill 360 does is it actually puts in place the ability to create the infrastructure in and around Lambert and the surrounding state, not just at the airport, but the surrounding state, so that you've got cargo coming in and out of airplanes on Lambert, which is going to make the product sustainable, and you've got the ability to develop all the land and give the airport the land lease, as well as many other land leases throughout the region, that gives us revenue that's sorely needed in order to lower our cost. We're a high-cost airport. We know that. We've heard it in the news. The only way to really lower that is to get more landed weight. Cargo airplanes are very heavy landed weight. They weigh about 650,000 pounds an airplane. You collect your dollars on that based on 1,000 pounds per landed weight. So for us to be able to generate 30, 40, 50 777 or 747 freighters a week, the amount of money that we can collect is substantial, which will give us the revenue needed to help offset those high landing fees. So I'm very supportive of this, very happy to answer any questions that anybody may have about the mechanism of the bill. But what we tried to do was put in the safeguards that are needed so that they do have to prove up front that you can't get any of the tax credits unless you have the facility built, unless you have 1 year's worth of proof that you've got product of a certain percentage that is flying in and out of Lambert on our airplanes on an international basis, and you have to requalify for that every year for 5 years. So you're eligible, depending on the size of product that you're putting on our airplanes, you're eligible for either a 15% or a 25% tax credit. That is spread over 5 years, and each year you have to requalify in order to receive that. So you're looking at 2 years before anybody could really take advantage of that first tax credit on the building side. Now the freight forwarding piece is that today you have these phenomenal consolidation facilities in Atlanta. You have them in Chicago, obviously, which is our biggest competitor, in Dallas, where they have all the warehousing, they have all the consolidation, they have the logistics already in place today. So for the freight forwarding world to bring product and move it to Lambert, they know that there's going to be some upfront additional cost. And that additional cost comes in the fact that they're still going to have to consolidate somewhere, more than likely, in order to be the most efficient. So they're going to consolidate in the short term in Chicago and truck the stuff down. So they're going to incur some extra costs there. The freight forwarding incentive, which is the smaller piece of the pie at $60 million of the total bill, is to be able to give them that break that is needed to say, makes sense for us to move our cargo in and out of Lambert, and in the meantime it won't cost us money. We can either do a break even or perhaps even make a small profit off of it. So that's what the freight forwarder piece is about, until we get the infrastructure and the needs to have those true consolidation and logistics facilities. And it's not one of the things that's probably been most exciting for us. I was over in China negotiating with China Cargo last month, and they still had this concern about how we're going to get the infrastructure and the growth to be able to help them in 3 years have what they consider a cargo hub. And as I laid out and spent about 4 hours talking about this bill and what it could mean, what we saw and heard from the Chinese is that, our preference is you give us subsidies, but if you don't, this is the first true mechanism we've ever seen to help us really create what we believe is going to be that sustainable cargo hub, and they're going to do it somewhere in the U.S. So we saw great support from them on it. Almost weekly, we are seeing publications throughout the world relative to cargo news publish something on this. I myself am getting calls from airports all over the country asking what we're doing, asking, what this means in terms of our ability to grow. And so we know it's got a lot of attention, and I think for us to be able to say that we can tie it into South American carriers, we can tie it into Russian carriers, we can tie it into South African carriers, all of which are growing countries in terms of international air cargo, is one of the greatest things we can do.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Tracy King here representing the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and we too would like to go on record in support of the bill. I think I said to this committee when we heard the Senate version that this is definitely a game changer, not just for the city of St. Louis, but for the state and the Midwest. And we think that these incentives are critical in beginning this process, so we urge your support.
Really what we're doing here is we are reducing the tax liability to to have an industry in our state that we don't have, okay? I don't find that offensive in any way. I think that's actually, people campaign a lot about this, about job growth, about opportunities, about creating an economic environment in our state that's conducive to the creation of quality jobs. Well, here it is. You know, and being critical of a new idea that's bold isn't anything new or isn't anything unique. I'm sure the steamboat captains of the late 1800s thought that the railroads were something that threatened their interest, or that people would be inconvenienced as their homes or property might be bought out to make way for the new mode of transportation. But guess what? One city got it right. Chicago got it right, and St. Louis was standing on the sidelines. I don't want to be remembered. There's a mural in the Senate, and I spoke this last time, of the first senator, Senator Benton, who was talking about having that westward expansion of the railroad from St. Louis to the West Coast, and we missed it, okay? What I'm saying this session is, this is important enough that I think we need to stand up for growing the pie. And I know that there's going to be plenty of people that poke holes and have criticism, but that's what critics do, okay? It's our job up here to seize on an opportunity to grow our economy, and there couldn't be anything more real or more immediate than being in the center of an international trade hub. Any great civilization, any great city has been at the confluence of routes, of commerce, of industry. That's what we have an opportunity here. And just because we want to live in an ivory tower and we want to give great speeches about what things might look like if we lived in some utopian world, we don't live in that world. We don't live in that world. So we can choose to compete, or we can be economic isolationists, and we can build a great wall around our state. I think it's our job as this committee and in the Senate in this session to break down those walls, to open up trade routes, to create opportunity for Missouri businesses, the ag community. We heard from the pork producers today. This is an opportunity that we haven't seen in this state.